the more you speak ill about your spouse, the more ill you are going to feel towards them. I mean, it is just a fact.
To sit in a home and say he never puts his clothes in the hamper, his muddy shoes are everywhere, the toothpaste cap is off, the seat is up, the whatever, you know, you can just start compounding everything. He doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. We're keeping score of wrongs rather than always looking for the best.
You know, we've gotten so far away from what we were designed for.
1 Corinthians 13 is a wonderful mirror to look into. You can't just read it and live your 30 years. You know, seasons change. You've got to come back and look in the 1 Corinthians 13 mirror and say, okay, did I grow in this year? Today we're going to be adding another building stage, and we're going to be adding the roof. Just as the roof in your home acts as a covering, we're going to learn and talk about how to cover our spouse in a 4-letter word. Let's dive into 1 Corinthians 13. Let's kind of look at it a little deeper. Let's share our thoughts. We'll go around the table. In 1 Corinthians 13, it's very clear. The only thing that has everlasting value, the only thing that will stand the test of time is love.
Yeah.
It is our highest calling to learn how to love each other. That's our highest calling to our spouse. How can I love you better today than I did yesterday?
Thank you for asking that. I've got a list right here.
And we need to demonstrate that in our marriage and our sex life.
Yes.
All right, 1 Corinthians 13. I also want to set this up just a little bit more. Looking at the first 3 verses in 1 Corinthians 13. Verse 1, it talks about if you are eloquent in earthly language, you can communicate well. It even says if you're eloquent in heavenly language, but you can't express yourself in love, it says you are nothing more than a clanging cymbal.
Like that drum set up in the shop.
Yeah.
That we need to bring back down.
If you think of somebody just clanging a cymbal all the time, you know, it's very annoying. You can only take so much of it. The first verse has to do with anything you say, anything that comes out of your mouth, if it's not with love. Okay, it says pretty much you're annoying. Verse number 2, if you have such faith that can move mountains, if you know God's hidden secrets, it says, but you don't have love, you're bankrupt. It says you have nothing. So verse 2 has to deal with what you believe. Okay, so if you believe and have no love, if you hold your belief systems up here and you think that they're good and right, but you don't have love, you're nothing. And then verse 3 says you could offer your body as a martyr, but do it without a pure motive. You could give your whole life and do it without a pure motive. You would gain nothing of value. So that's something that you would do. So basically the first 3 verses say whatever you say, what you believe, or whatever you do. If you do it without love, you're nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, that checks off everything that encompasses how we live. What you say, believe, and do. But if you separate it from love, you have nothing of everlasting value. That's a brake check right there.
Yeah.
Looking at yourself. So what do y'all have to say when you look at yourself in the mirror with that? How does that sit?
I have something I always say. Everything will go back to the intent of your heart. If you're trying to correct someone, even if you're trying to do something for someone, everything will go back to the intent of where that is originating. And if it's coming from any other place than love, we've missed the point. If we're trying to correct someone and that's not coming from a place of love, it's of ill effect. We've missed the point. Not only is the person who needs correcting missed the point, but we have. If I'm cooking a meal for somebody and I'm doing it because I want reciprocation,
Right.
I've missed the mark. So it goes back to saying, doing, whatever.
So
It's going to
good.
go back to the intent of your heart.
Right.
Yeah.
And is the intent of your heart, is that mark love?
Yes. Yeah.
I'd like to add, speaking about intent, in the message where it talks about on further down the line about trust, God always. I've been a Christian for 30 years, and so I trust that God has my best interest, no matter what I'm feeling at the moment or anything. It kind of coincides with intent. I've been married to Wendy for 30 years, so I know the intent of her heart. Whether we've had a day of arguing or not, if we get into an argument or whatever, and I'm correcting her or she's correcting me, I know where the intent stems from. It's from love.
Yeah.
You know, it's not trying to dog me out or tell me what I did wrong.
Right.
You know, there's a purpose behind it, an intent behind it. And sometimes you have to trust that and know, you know, because we've been together so long and I've been a Christian for so long. You know where it stems from, where it comes from.
I like it. What do you say, Chad, when it comes to what you say, believe, and do?
Well, two of those, in my interpretation, two of those are external and one's internal. Things we say and the actions we take or do are visible and heard by others. But our belief system is internal. What we say we believe, our faith that moves mountains. That tells me that we have to be more deliberate. I have to be more deliberate in asking myself, do I just think this is a good thing to do? Or am I truly acting, saying, believing in love? Because we made a joke last night, and like none of us are getting any younger.
Yeah.
And the time that we have left is going by quicker. I've noticed that from the time I was about 30. Every year goes by just a little bit quicker than the previous one, right? So we don't have a ton of time left. I mean, I'm trying to get morbid, but I don't want to waste my time doing things
That don't matter, yeah.
or saying stuff, or even what my internal belief system is. If it's not rooted in love, it's all worthless, and I ain't got a whole lot of time left to waste.
Yeah.
And so we do, a lot of times we do things, and we was having this discussion the other day. I'm a military training instructor. I was having a discussion about our thinking. System one thinking is just instinctual kind of gut reactions. Experience tells us this is the response to this. It's like driving a car, right? Over time, you turn something that's system two, very deliberate, and I have to turn the wheel this way, I have to apply the brake this way, such and such, to something that you can do without thinking about it. I mean, how many times have we realized that we passed our exit or whatever while we were deep in conversation because we're almost on autopilot? And so we can go through life in that system one type of thinking and just thinking we're doing good things, we're saying the right things, we're serving in the right areas. Our belief system of our heart is pure and correct. But sometimes we have to do a little brake tap for ourselves and say, am I doing these things purely out of love or not?
Yeah.
And if I'm not, then I need to alter course.
Right. We want to involve ourselves with and participate in the things that have the everlasting value. And what's the point if we don't? And so if we do recognize the need, then let's go down to verses 4-8 and see what the Bible has to say what love is. I mean, it states several things. David, if you just want to read verses 4-8 for us, and then we'll just kind of jump in there.
All right, I'm going to read it from the New Living Translation.
Okay.
Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. Prophecy and speaking in unknown languages and special knowledge will become useless, but love will last forever.
There's a lot to unpack in 4 verses.
Yes,
that's
yes.
huge.
And we're not going to unpack everything, but we're just going to talk about a few things that stick out to us and try to apply them to everyday living. Wendy, we'll start with you. What few things stick out to you in these verses? How have you applied them to your life?
I will say the very first thing that sticks out to me is love isn't always me first. I have told plenty of people that we have talked with, couples, I am not naturally an unselfish person. And I know human nature, most of us aren't, but I may have had a worse case. I am not naturally unselfish. David is completely unselfish. He has always put me first. Car, home, time, whatever. He has always put my needs above his. For me, I had to make more of a conscious effort. It seemed to be effortless for him, me looking in. Now, he may have had battles I didn't know about, but for me, I had to make more of a conscious effort to say, you need to be more worried about him than yourself. That's the very first thing that sticks out to me. And in this day and age, we're all about me time, self-care. And I'm not knocking any of that stuff because all of that has its place.
It does.
You have got to let that register in you somewhere. All of that has its place. But our very human nature is going to fight against this. It's almost like we have a self-preservation tactic that we fight against.
Right.
That's the very first thing. I have others, but that's the very first thing that sticks out to me, that love is not me first.
Love it. What about you, David?
I like, and I'm going back to the message where I made some notes earlier.
Okay.
I like the part in the message where it talks about love never looks back. It, you take it and you run with it. You don't look back. Jesus hasn't taken his love back from me. He hasn't taken his salvation back from me. He gave it to me once, done, no questions asked. He never looks back. I kind of think about it in that way also. I've always tried to look at it like that. I made a commitment to love her 30 plus years ago. And when I made that commitment, I meant it. I don't know where that came from. My dad and my mom died when I was young, so, I'm not sure if it was taught to me or if it's something God just gave me. But when I made that commitment to her, I took it serious. I was ready for it. I meant it when I did it. I was tired of living the life that I've been living, and I've loved her, and she's loved me for 30 years up and down, and I've never looked back, so.
That's awesome.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, in this day and time, people, men and women alike, they don't take love seriously anymore. They don't take marriage seriously anymore. They sign it, and in a year, if they don't like it, they get a divorce or whatever. And it's God did not design it like that.
That's right.
He did not. We've gotten so far away from what we were designed for.
Maybe it's just a love problem in general of understanding what true love is, and it's hard to give that true love and look forward if you haven't received it. 1 Corinthians 13 is a wonderful mirror to look into. Yes. We have to look into this mirror and look and say we have to realign ourselves so we can hit the mark again and realize we are investing in something that's everlasting.
Yeah.
What about you, Chad? What's one thing that stood out to you in that?
Well, I'm going to reiterate, maybe not as eloquently as what Wendy said, but the words that came to mind immediately when you asked that question was others before self. Right? It's somewhat of a military law enforcement model, which says, hey, if we're going into harm's way, if somebody's not coming home, it's going to be me, not my brother. Right?
Yeah.
I will lay my life down. And even the Bible tells us no greater love, right, than a man lay his life down for his friends. We do know, and I wish I knew Scripture better, where I could give a book, a chapter, and a verse. But the inclination of our hearts without Christ is only evil all the time.
Yes.
That's pretty strong language. Only evil all the time if we are not abiding by how God designed us. And so none of this is possible without knowing first the love of God, as you were just referring to. You quoted John 3:16. And Wendy, I loved hearing what you said about David, and it seemed very natural for him. But I would guarantee you that there were times that was challenging because none of this is easy.
Yeah.
If it was easy, everybody would be able to do it, and nobody would be spending 2, 3, 4 years together and then just saying, "Ah, this ain't working. We'll get a divorce." So, putting others before yourself, and especially your spouse, we kid about this, but it's somewhat true. Sometimes the world that we go out into temporarily gets the best version of us, and then when we come home, our spouses don't get the best version of us. Right? We don't go out the door like we just rolled out of bed, and not, make ourselves presentable and then come home and make ourselves up so we can be with our spouse. It's quite the opposite. Right? That's just an example. If we can go out there and do these things that you referred to first, what we say, what we believe, our actions that we take. Oh yeah, I go to church and we do this community food bank thing every Thursday or whatever. Those things are all good. But if we don't really have love first, and then the love needs to start in the home, because if it's not here, it can't be out there. One of my students said the other day, he said, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I'm not sure what his faith system is or something, but that is a biblical principle that we can't give love out of ourselves if we are empty. And so, we've talked around the table here about the 100-100 concept. Neither one of our marriages made it 30 years without saying this is not a 50-50 deal. Okay. I know that there's been days that Amy had to continue to give 100% when I was not at that level, and vice versa. And I'm sure the same is true for you all.
Right.
So all of these things about being patient and kind and not keeping a record of wrongs and not being jealous and all these things, it's things that we have to make a daily decision to lay down, because it's instinctual in us to look out for ourselves first. But if we're truly going to love our spouse or anybody else, we have to have that others before self mentality about all the things.
Well, one of the things that stuck out to me was it says it in the Passion Translation, verse 7, love is a safe place of shelter. I know that my parents did teach me this. Love is a safe place that offers shelter, not exposure. And I want to specifically bring up, and this is something that I had to have learned, is that if I have a grievance with Chad, it is best that we share those in private and not public. To put down Chad in front of it and other people and in public, it is just, I would feel disrespected if he did that to me. And so love says, hey, there still may be something we need to talk about or address, but I'm going to cover you. I'm going to protect you, a shield. We're going to offer a safe place of shelter here and not exposure. Exposure would come from a different place in the heart. And that, I don't think that would be rooted in love.
Yeah. Or I've seen people, men mostly, there may be an instance where I've heard a woman or two say something, but putting down your spouse whenever they're not even present in front of other people.
Good point.
Terrible. Things that you would be too cowardly to say if they were standing there. But you feel that it's okay, maybe or maybe not, but you think it's okay to say when they're not in the room. This, that burns me up more than anything.
It's always good to do that break check and make sure that you're rooting yourself in love before you carry on those conversations, because more than likely it's not coming from a place of love. It's coming from a place of aggravation, frustration. We all have those, so we just kind of got to back up and realize we're paving the way forward, rooted in love. You should have wore your rooted in love cap. You have one.
Oh yeah.
But I like your worthy cap.
I would have been thinking,
I like the worthy cap.
I think we'd be missing an opportunity here, though, to capitalize on what David just said, which is, if that's what you spend your time doing, you will build contempt for your spouse.
100%.
If you feel like you have a group of people that you can go to and vent, well, I'm just getting it off my chest or whatever, the more you speak ill about your spouse, the more ill you are going to feel towards them. I mean, it is just a fact. I'm not a psychologist, but try it. It's a fact. And there is a point to where you can reach contempt for a person where it is very hard to lose that contempt and gain that respect back. So, and I'll just say guys, because
99%.
The environments that I have been in the career paths that I've been on, there's a lot of that goes on, and then we wonder why we have a high divorce rate in our career fields. Stop.
Or not even necessarily venting, just saying something that comes off the tongue in a group of other people about their spouse, and not even thinking before they say it, it just comes out. You know there's a rooted problem there, but it's just coming out without them even thinking, my wife do it, or blah, 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 whatever. Not necessarily just dogging her out, but just words and remarks in general.
Yes, sir.
You open the door to, whenever you do that, you open the door for other people
That's right.
to degrade.
Yeah.
You know,
they feel
even
like
if they
can
don't
say
do it right there in the present, they go home and tell their spouse, or they go and tell another friend, you know, and then all of a sudden all of this negativity about your marriage is just out there. You have to be very guarded about that.
Right.
Very good. I love that point. Does anybody else have anything that they wanted to bring out of this passage?
Oh, I have lots.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, let's talk about it. Okay,
You shouldn't
Wendy?
have said that, Amy.
And we really can fast forward, but
No,
I mean,
this is why we're
I
here.
don't know that there is a bad point to it. It is all, I'm just say, my second one for myself was it doesn't fly off the handle.
I was about to speak to
But
that.
he probably had it marked. Let me, Wendy, did you see this?
I know you over here reading my.
He does not. Once again, this is maybe my love blinders.
Quit talking to me with your hands. You know I don't like that.
He does not have a bad temper where I'm concerned.
Yeah.
The boys, our boys, argue me down on this point. They're like, "Have you ever worked out in the pasture with Daddy? Have you ever been trying to, fix anything with Daddy?" He has a different attitude with them. But with me, he is very slow to anger. And I can't remember if I've shared this before. I think I have. But I came from very quick-tempered people. I am still to this day. It is something I have to die to the cross daily. A very quick-tempered person with sharp, double-edged words. He was very thoughtful in his words. So that is something.
I bit my tongue a lot.
Yes, I'm 1,000,000% sure. But that is something, love does not fly off the handle. And we excuse ourselves far too often, to say, well, they said so-and-so, or this happened, and if they wouldn't do this, and it says, love is not quick to fly off the handle. Your words matter.
Right.
Just like what we were talking about earlier, how you talk about your spouse in front of people. Your words when angry matter.
Right.
And we excuse them, we brush them under the rug, and we say, well, I was mad when I said that. It's still not cool. But that's a big bulletin point for me.
What's as you've been married as long as y'all have, what's a mitigation that you've learned to put in place to make sure that you don't fly off the handle, say things when you're emotional that you don't really mean, would regret after? Is there mitigations that you've learned to put in place?
There's been instances where we've just had to time out and we'll talk about it tomorrow.
Yes.
If it elevates to that.
Yeah.
He does that more for me. Honestly, he could probably sit there and carry on a conversation. Whereas me, and I'm not condoning it in any way, shape, or form, but I'm just way more heated. I'm gonna say something dumb in the moment. I am just going to. And I do not like that part about my personality. So as the years went on, he kind of learned, like, I'm just going to leave you. I'm just going to let you stew in your own anger, so to speak. But that was a way to keep, that was his brilliance again
Right.
in saying, you're not going to be able to carry on an adult conversation, so we will
Get some space.
table this.
And I don't know why I've been able to do that. I grew up with 5 sisters. I was the only boy. I don't know if maybe there's some relation to it from that, but I will say, having sons and 1 daughter, I have treated my 1 daughter and Wendy, I've had way more patience looking back than I had with my boys. And I guess I may be a little old fashioned where that's concerned, but I was thinking also about love doesn't fly off the handle. And now that my son, all of our children are grown, but now that my sons are grown, I look back and I remember like what she was saying, my sons have a different story of what she has and Raven has. And that's just because I think men need to be men. They need to be leaders. They need to be fathers and husbands. And they need to be masculine. And I probably went to the extreme raising them, and they can tell you stories. But I wish I could go back and turn some of those situations into a teaching moment rather than flying off the handle at them. And I'm trying to, now that my oldest son will be 30 this year. Our youngest one will be 26, so they're fathers and husbands now. I try to look for opportunities to coach them, not father them, because they are grown men now, where their children are concerned. I hate to see them just, you can fly off the handle so quick at one of your kids whenever you could teach them instead of jumping down their throat and just jerking them up and wearing them out. So I want for them to make some better decisions where that's concerned than the ones I made.
Right.
And like after a while, whenever we're done later, me and I call them my boys, but they're grown men now, we're going to worm cows. And worming cows, you tend to fly off the handle sometimes. So y'all pray for them this afternoon that I don't jump down those grown men's throats
That you're not eating
while we're trying to get the cows up and run them through the chute, okay? But because I'm still learning. But I wish I could go.
You're still human.
Yeah, of course. But I wish I could go back and turn some of those moments, those flying off the handle moments, into more of a teaching moment.
Right.
So.
Well, you taught me a lot. If it makes any difference, you taught me a lot.
I had that one underlined as well. Love isn't easily angered. And when it comes to Chad and I and our relationship, I have used that line as a measuring stick a lot, because let's just say he's done something and I've gotten angry. I've had to learn it wasn't his job to resolve that anger. It was my job to resolve the attitude in my heart. It's taken a while. And so that's why I say I've used that as a measuring stick, because if something isn't easily as irritating to me as it was years ago, I know I'm growing. Or I know my roots are going a little bit deeper and I'm learning to love a little bit better. So to me, it's just a measuring stick when it just comes with him. If I can just not be as easily angered, I know that, hey, Amy, you've got to look at an attitude in your heart and get to the root of that. Or, hey, Amy, you're doing better and you're growing some good seed now. So that's how I look at it. Anything you wanted to add?
I think David put it really well, that taking a pause. Right. If we're emotional about something and that emotion is other than love, then it might need to wait. If we're overly sad about something, if we're overly angry about something, depressed about something, we're going to say things that are influenced by those emotions. And the only emotion and not that love is only an emotion, because it's not, it's deeper than that. But if we are going to say or do something in any emotion other than love, it has a great potential to not go well, including disciplining our children. And so I hope that I also get to watch my kids raise their children and apply the discipline the right way. I know I wasn't perfect as a father, but I did make a vow to Amy and to myself when we started having kids, I would never lay a hand on my kids in anger. Because of the way I was raised, I was not going to be a violent parent. And discipline in anger. So So, and to your point about raising boys versus girls, Isaac probably has a completely different storyline about how he was raised than
We
our daughters
discipline.
do.
Don't get us wrong.
Yes,
We
Yeah.
discipline.
absolutely. But
just
sometimes
not
that
in,
discipline waited till the next day.
because you
Because
would
if
have
I
done
was
it
hot
in
about
anger.
something,
Yeah.
I was not going to apply that corporal punishment, aka spanking,
Yeah.
while I was hot
Yeah, good move.
about it. So, yeah, any emotion other than love doesn't produce a positive result 99 times out of 100. And so that's a great mitigation. Just, does this have to be dealt with right this second? No. Then let's put it on pause. But the opposite of that too, and you and I had a discussion about this the other day, is like, you can't just not talk about stuff. Because when you cool down the next day and you go, I'm not going to have this discussion at all, those things start to compound upon each other
it'll rear its head
at some point. And so I think that's a balancing act, and that as you get more mature in your relationship with your spouse, you learn to have difficult conversations rooted in love. This, from her to me, hey, when you did this, this is how it made me feel. This was the, compounding effect on the day or what have you. Those conversations still need to be had, but we need to make sure that we're doing it out of love and not out of, you owe me this, or I'm mad and you get to hear about it, or whatever it might be.
I want to go a little bit deeper. How do we get to that place where we can love like that? And let me come through the angle of love keeps no record of wrong. Okay. If we keep a list of hurts and grievances, and we have that running list, I'm going to start to major in those.
This was next on my list.
Oh, good, good. Then you jump in right behind me. I'm gonna start to major on those things. How do I navigate a way forward? I can only do it with the love of the Father.
Yes.
And there comes a time to where we need to receive that into our life. We have to say, Lord, you have a love not only for myself, but you have a love I could give to others. And we have to come to a point that is so beneficial if we can receive his unconditional love for ourselves. And let me say this, there is nothing bigger than his love. That list of hurts and grievances that you're keeping, there's nothing bigger than his love for you. The word says God is love.
Yes.
Okay, so you may feel like you're holding a big, big hurt, a big, big grievance, but this is what the Lord did. He does not call us by our sins. He calls us by our name. You look into the word, he calls people out by their name. We may see our spouses by their sins. We may see our friends by their sins, but the Lord doesn't see us by our sins. He calls us by our name. He knows we have purpose in life and destiny. And that's the track, the path we're trying to get to as humans here on earth, to love unconditionally our spouses. And so we have to every day receive that love and work through those things that need to be worked through. Because if I am holding that list of grievances and I'm majoring in those, I'm going to get stuck in the healing process. I say, Lord, I need your help. I need it. I need you to help me work through these grievances, change my heart. Let me receive your love to do so. And then you can start moving forward in a situation. But I can't do it on my own. I can't do it in my own strength. I can't do it on my own. Even when it comes to loving myself, I'm not just talking about my spouse, even loving myself, receiving that unconditional love. What were you said you underlined some stuff in that area.
Mine kind of coincided. There were two. It says love doesn't keep a score of sins. And then there's another one a little bit further down. It says always look for the best. And to me, those can kind of coincide. We have a way, the saying is the grass is always greener. And that is a major, major problem in marriage. It's easy to sit in a home and say he never puts his clothes in the hamper, his muddy shoes are everywhere, the toothpaste cap is off, the seat is up, the whatever, you can just start compounding everything. He doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. We're keeping score of wrongs rather than always looking for the best. And you're living with somebody, face reality, you're going to fuss. Yes. You have a way of doing things. He has a way of doing things. You are going to have arguments. There's just no way to live with somebody else and not have those arguments. But right on the heels of that, you need to remind yourself of why you chose that person. Or even if you, because I don't consciously have in my mind, this is why I picked David. We have a whole testimony about that. But I don't have that in my mind, but I know why I have stayed with David. And I have always tried to remind myself when aggravation, I'm like, yes, but this, yes, but this. There is a reason Scripture says to renew your thoughts. Yeah. And you have to do that. Once again, I don't know why I always feel like we need to preface it by saying there are extreme circumstances, people living in abuse and things like that. But we're just talking about regular Joes. You have got to renew your mind and find the good things in your spouse. And I had an older lady tell me one time in church early on in our marriage, she was like, honey, do you think there aren't things he can't fuss about with you? And I thought, well, of course I do. What do you mean? I don't think there's anything. But it's so true.
You're talking to me with your hands. You know I don't like that.
But it's so true. There were just as many things that I'm sure he could say, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like the fact that she puts the cap back on the toothpaste, I don't like the fact that she puts it down. I said, who made that rule? Why can't it stay up? But anyway, just always, I just feel like that needs to follow. When you're trying to keep a record of wrongs, remind yourself to always look for the best.
Right. Jesus doesn't keep the record of wrongs for us. He even went one step further. He went to the cross to cover them.
Right.
Yeah.
He covered them with his unconditional love because he laid down his life. Whatever you say, believe, and do, he laid it down in complete love. He's our best example.
Yeah, and he never looked back or never took it away.
That's right.
The Bible also tells us to whatsoever things are good and lovely and pure and whatever, think on these things. And it just struck me, Wendy, when you were talking about the things that might irritate you about your spouse.
Yeah.
None of those things were the things that drew you to them. So what do they matter?
And they're not weighty. They're not moral issues.
When Amy and I were dating, I didn't ask her what her toothpaste tube preference was. Do you squeeze it from the middle, or do you squeeze it from the top, or do you put the cap back on or not, or what do you do with your shoes when you take, get in the house and take them off?
Yeah. We weren't worried
about that.
Yeah.
So why would I allow issues? And we do, because we start focusing on those things.
Right.
And we make those the main things when they're not.
Yeah.
They weren't the main thing that brought us together. So why do we allow ourselves to think about these things that drive us crazy about each other and make those the main issues that end up dividing us?
Yeah.
Because that's not why I chose Amy. I don't think that some of the things that I do on a daily that might irritate her a little bit. We have a almost daily war with the air fryer.
Yeah.
I want it on the counter, so when I go to use it, it's right there.
Yeah.
She wants it in the pantry,
where
she don't like the way the clutter looks
pantry.
on the counter. So it's like the toilet seat.
Yeah.
Right?
Who made
she
that
puts
rule?
it away, I take it back out. She puts it away, I take it back out. But that's not an issue.
It's not going to make or break.
Right?
It shouldn't.
It drives me nuts when I go to pull out my breakfast burritos and the air fryer is not sitting there. But that's nothing in comparison to what made me fall in love with her. Right? So we have to be very much in charge of our
thought
mental,
pattern.
about one another.
Yes.
Just
So
like
leave David's shoes alone.
And I'm not going to touch the air fryer anyway. Put it where you want it.
Just like seasons change, okay? There's a repetitive cycle. Or you can look at it as a garden. When you have to tend to the garden, you're doing it the same way every year. It's good to pull out this 1 Corinthians 13.
Yeah.
You can't just read it and live your 30 years. Seasons change. You've got to come back to that and look in the mirror and say, okay, did I grow in this year? Which one did I struggle with? Because this is a very ultimate framework, looking at Christ's love for us and Him defining what true love is, and really sinking our roots into that so we can have those good marriages and sex life for sure.